there everybody, it's Mark Crowley. I'm back with another How to Draw video. Today I'm doing a sequel. How do you like that? A sequel to a video that I did 4 years ago called How to Draw Babies, Teens, and Adults. In that video I had each one of the faces straight ahead, sort of like a passport photo kind of pose. This time we're going to do a 3/4 point of view, each one of them turning off a little to the side. Now people like to know the size I'm working at, so let's get to that. It's about 2.5 inches, this one circle over here. That works out to around 6 centimeters, just a little bit more than 6 centimeters. Now, these are not all the same size. The baby's head is a little smaller. So you come over here, and it's more like 5.5 centimeters, which works out to, 2.25 inches or so. Now, I've put this line straight across. That's going to be the line of the upper eyelash on all of the different characters. This line, I would say, is a little under the halfway point, right? If I were to put it exactly across, I would put it there, but no, it's just a shade underneath that. And then very tightly packed together these two parallel lines for the top and the bottom of each one of the eyes. Bear with me, people do like to know the size that I'm working at here. Just a little under 1/4 inch, I would say. That works out to around 1/2 centimeter. Okay, enough of that stuff. Let's go ahead and start getting into placing these facial features. Now I'm going to do things a little differently than I did last time. I'm going to keep all of these faces in view so that we can compare the different facial proportions. And let's begin now by drawing the jawline of the baby's head. So I decided to go ahead and draw the lines of the neck while I was getting this done. And first thing you're going to notice is that, proportionally this chin is very small compared to the rest of the circle. And indeed, what I've decided to do, instead of moving on to drawing any of the other facial features, I'm going to move right on and draw the corresponding lines for the teenager and for the grown-up so that we can see what happens over time. So here you see the jaw getting bigger than in the teenage years, and I've sort of delineated the jaw over here heading towards the ear in a way that I'm not going to do, or do much more subtly, I suppose, in the teenage version. The neck getting longer, of course, a big difference between even the teenager and the baby's neck in terms of length. And otherwise, I think it's time now for us to move on to drawing the eyes. What I'll do is go ahead and all at once draw the baby's eyes, the teens, and the grown-ups. Okay, now some of you may be thinking, boy, you're zoomed out so far I can't see the details. Well, rest assured, we're going to be zooming in one by one to get closer in on the details. For now, I think it is helpful to be able to compare them all within the frame at the same time. So you can see here the eyes of the baby, and indeed all of the facial features we will find are sort of more compact, more close together. Then you get older and they widen out just a little bit. And I think the difference between the placement of the teenager's eyes and the grown-up's eyes is not so significant, more of a drastic change, as indeed there's just a drastic change in growth from the baby's age up to the teenager's age. So let's go ahead now and move on to drawing a very simple series of lines to show the extent of the lower part of the nose on all three faces. So I'm not actually drawing the nose at this stage, just putting a line to show the bottom edge of it. And indeed, much higher here, the nose of a baby, much smaller and less defined. We will certainly see later as I begin to add shading and so forth. By the time of the teenage years, the length of your nose is getting fairly established. It'll become more refined in adulthood, but I don't think that it drops too much lower, that lower part of the nose on the face as you get older. And I'm going to do the same thing. I know it looks a little weird, like they're aliens or something, but I'm just going to draw a simple straight line to show where the mouth will end up being on all three of the faces. So with both of these pairs of lines, interesting to see how it corresponds with the initial circle. Here, kind of up within that circle, here starting to shift down, and here the line of the mouth all the way outside of the circle. And I do believe that the jaw, from your teenage years to your adult years, does continue to grow a little bit and maybe causes a bit of a shift in the position of the mouth. So now it is time to draw. Let's get a couple of things done all at once. I want to do the line of of the hair that shows the extent of the forehead on each one of the faces, and then also at the same time do the eyebrows. All right, so just about the line of the hair, I think on a baby's head, the forehead always seems a little larger proportionally, and even just like the shape of the head seems to emphasize the forehead more, and it gets more de-emphasized as one gets older. The eyebrows quite light, as well as being smaller on a baby's face, and then darkening and naturally sort of filling in as a person ages. And one last thing to do, and then we can maybe knock it off with a time lapse, start doing some real-time drawing. Just have to add the ears on all three heads. All right, now someone pointed out to me recently that on a baby's head, the ears are actually a little bit lower on the head, compared to in relation to the eyes, and that I suppose over time they sort of shift upwards a bit, so as to be, by my estimation, close to the top lining up with the tops of the eyes. On some people's faces, maybe even higher than that. But I think we're now ready to stop doing all the time-lapse stuff and start getting into refining the details. So I'm going to change focus, shift over here, get a little closer in on the baby's face, and we'll get into some real-time drawing. All right, so here we go. I'm going to try to do at least some of this real-time, but certainly with like the hair and stuff like that. I am going to have to bring back old man time-lapse. There's just so many different things to cover in a video like this, and I think in a way, as I said 4 years ago, best not to think of it as a step-by-step, line-by-line video, more something about general principles that you could apply to a character of your own creation, and indeed different styles. These ideas about proportions can be applied to different drawing styles if you want your character to look more like a baby or more like a grown-up. So anyway, I'm refining the baby's eyes. Some babies, of course, have quite thick eyelashes, so you can certainly do that if you choose to. This is going to be a female character, and so in a way I'm using the eyelash, the thick eyelashes as sort of a cue of femininity. But my style here, a little bit inspired by manga, although I'm trying to make this more like an American or Western style drawing rather than manga. I've done a lot of manga style videos just recently, and I will do more. But let's go ahead and refine these eyebrows just a little. As I said, they do tend to be lighter on a baby. Notice that the eyebrows in a 3/4 point of view shift over a little to one side. You don't want them to be directly above the eye, generally moving just a little over to one side just because of the shape of the forehead. And I am going to get a light little line here for showing the nose, and the nose, maybe out of all of the facial features, is the thing that changes most drastically. Notice what I'm doing here. I'm coming down to where that circle was, and I'm making it rather rounded here. I think almost all babies are born with somewhat rounded little button noses, and then as they get older, the nose shape in many cases changes quite drastically. So I'm drawing just a little line here for the nostril. I'm going to put in a slight indication of the edge of the nostril, trying not to go overboard. This relates a little bit with that eye, I guess, if you're going for line placement. And now for the toughest of them all is drawing the mouth. I struggle with the mouth, and so I apologize in advance if this is not a particularly beautiful mouth that I end up drawing here. I've decided to have the mouth lightly parted, the lips lightly parted in each one of these drawings to create a sort of relaxed look, giving that classic bow. Is that what they call it? Like a bow and arrow kind of thing, of the shape of the upper lip here. I've decided not to try to go for like a smile, more of just a neutral expression. I was going to say expressionless, emotionless, but that sounded creepy. The emotionless baby's face. I'm having nightmares. In any case, getting this upper lip in place, and then usually with a baby, I think the lower lip quite sort of rounded and puffy, and maybe sort of. I went back and listened to the old video from 4 years ago, and I theorized that the baby fat of the cheeks almost kind of would push together and cause the baby's lips to seem a little more puffy or rounded. Just a harebrained theory of mine from 4 years ago. And here I am putting it out there again. I'm doing a little bit of shading here for below the lower lip heading into the chin. And indeed, speaking of baby fat, we want to get an indication of baby fat into this contour here. You don't want to go too far. But yeah, definitely getting this rounded cheek and this line here of the separated, area of the chin, that goes a long way towards making your character look like a baby. Notice also this very rounded forehead as it comes up across the cheek, and I'll just quickly erase that circle so that we can begin to see the face as it's going to be. Now, keeping with this my comparative approach, if that's the right word, rather than continue refining this, I want to move over here. Well, actually, there's one more thing. Sorry. I was going to say I'm going to move over to the other drawing, but I wasn't quite ready. I want to get in some indication of the upper eyelid line for this baby. Not quite so, generally not quite so visible in a baby, the fold of the upper eyelid, as compared to grown-ups. Okay, so there we go. And like I was saying, if this is going to be not manga style, you can go ahead and do an indication of the tear duct, which manga illustrators tend to avoid drawing, or more just sort of leave up to your imagination. Okay, now let's move on to the teenaged version. And I think immediately the eyes, when I'm drawing a teenage character, instead of making them so rounded like you see in a baby face, I'm going to make them a little longer, wider, narrower from top to bottom. So I keep throwing all these descriptors. Narrower, wider. What is it, Crowley? Make up your mind. And as I said, the fold of the upper eyelid becomes a little more visible. Let's go ahead, before I go further into the eyes, and do a delineation of at least the bridge of the nose here, and show how it can be quite drastically different. Over here we had this sort of S shape almost, and here I'm going to actually come down quite a bit more straight, and maybe even before I reach that circle, that initial circle guideline, I'm going to start cutting back. It's real close actually to that circle guideline. I'm going to cut back here and maybe erase that initial guideline just a touch and get a line of the nostril. And I may hold off on delineating anything else about her nose, at least for now, but I'll go ahead and quickly do my sort of pupil highlight thing that I do for finishing off the eyes. Maybe give a little more indication of the lower eyelid than I did on the baby version. And just to save time, because I am going to end up having to do a lot of stuff in time-lapse, I'll do the other eye real quickly in time-lapse right now. Okay, so let's come back and do the eyebrows. One thing I wanted to point it out, over here, very rounded forehead. As a person ages, I believe the sort of flesh of the forehead, if not the bone itself underneath, begins to kind of come out and create an angle that is visible from this 3/4 point of view. So you can see me starting to kind of angle the forehead a little bit, have the eyebrow come across here, and as I said, the eyebrow begins to fill out, gets darker. Is it fill out or fill in? It fills. And so just darkening this in, and I'll probably not go too much farther with that because I want it to be even just a little bit thicker for the grown-up version. you know, again, for the purpose of saving time, I'm going to go ahead and do the mouth in time-lapse, but I'll come back and sort of explain the differences between the teenage mouth and the baby mouth. So here you see the mouth sort of widening out a little, maybe a little less puffed up looking compared to the baby's. And what I'm going to do right now, just quickly in real time, is to extend this line just a little bit, real lightly, to show the extent of the jaw. Whereas I think with the baby, I'm almost just going to have that kind of fade off. Because that becomes a big thing about showing age as this jawline gets more and more defined. As she gets older. Now I think it's time to really shift focus so that we can see the comparison between the teenage version and the grown-up version. All right, well, I'm going to do at least one of the eyes real time here. And I would say just the actual drawing of the eye itself is not so different from the way that I draw the teenager's eyes. It's kind of a lot of the stuff that's surrounding the eye. The eyelashes, I may just go ahead and make them a little darker, maybe suggest that she's wearing makeup. That's a bit of a cheat because it's, you know, more of a adding cosmetics things rather than facial proportions. But, you know, part of this is about how illustrators, the sort of tricks that illustrators use to convey age in a character. And, yeah, adding a little more eyeliner or whatever might be one way of doing it. What I wanted to do is also continue with this idea of the forehead getting a bit more definition as the character gets older. So I'm going to really have it come out here almost to a point. Maybe it's more the eyebrow that is creating that point there. In any case, thickening in the eyebrow even more. And then definitely want to do the nose all in real time, because the nose, arguably more than any other feature, is the one that really changes drastically over your lifetime, certainly compared to a baby's nose, but I think also even to a teenager's nose. The grown-up's nose undergoes quite a transformation. So I'm coming down here past the well outside of the circle compared to what you saw over there. And I'm going to go ahead and get, I always do like just a little line for the nostril, and I think I will go ahead and outline the edge of the nostril in a way that I was very hesitant to do in the teenager drawing for fear of making her look too old. I mean, the truth is, in real life, you can see all of this stuff on noses. I think sometimes illustrators, and especially manga illustrators, are greatly reducing a lot of the detail of the nose and focusing more on the eyes for a variety of reasons. Let me erase these lines real quickly so that I can even begin to show, you know, like maybe the tip of the nose comes out a little. Of course, different people have different nose shapes, but I guess the general principle is that as you get older, whatever shape your nose was intended to be, the real definition of it comes out with age, and you see more and more clearly the particular. So like the bridge of the nose is going to be more noticeable, I think, in the grown-up than it was in the teenager. And sadly, I think I am going to have to do some time-lapse for these other facial features. The mouth itself, I really do believe, is not changing so much. Actually, this eyebrow, I think, is maybe something that I'm going to change more drastically. But watch as I go ahead and add the mouth and the nose in time-lapse, but then I'm going to come back and maybe do a couple of things to the eyes that will make the character look even older. All right, now at this stage, I think arguably this character looks more sort of like college age, or maybe in her 20s or something. And so I want to show you a couple of little tricks for making the character look even older than that, without going all the way to sort of like drawing wrinkles and so forth, which in a way, you know, that's the easy way out, and sometimes you don't want your character to look that old. So one thing I'm doing is I'm sharpening the cheekbone contour a little bit, but really important here is if you do even the slightest indication of the chin as separating a bit from the rest of the jaw, even the slightest change there begins to add age to the character. So you don't have to go too far in terms of like drawing wrinkles around the mouth and so forth. Something about adding an indication of the chin and indeed this sort of delineated jaw can add quite a bit of age. Now what I wanted to do is show that by adding just a little shading around the eyes, maybe just the very slightest suggestion of sort of crow's feet or whatever, anything near the eyes that starts to resemble, you know, bags under the eyes or whatever, adds quite a lot of age to a character without you resorting to really outrageous lines of wrinkles and so forth. And so yeah, sadly I think we're maybe reaching the end of stuff that I can do real time. What I want to do is maybe shift back to the first one, and all in time lapse I'm going to add the hair as well as a lot of shading to the face, and zip through all three of the different characters, you know, zoomed in as we are, before kind of pulling back to make some comments about final comparisons between all three different ages. Alright, well, obviously had to race through an awful lot of stuff at the end of the video here, and sorry there's no information about drawing hair. I have covered how to draw hair in lots of other videos. I will link to them in the info box below, but I wanted to talk about the shading. Notice a lot of shading down here on the baby's cheek to convey that roundedness, staying quite smooth and hopefully subtle with the shading on the teenage character's face. As we move to this middle-aged character, getting a little bolder, a little more angular with the shading, and my challenge for myself was to, you know, try not to rely too much on wrinkles, although I did get a little bag under the eye here and so forth, but to rely more on just defining the nose more, the chin more, the various facial features to make this character look a lot older than this one. Well, you know it's time for me to say thank you to anyone who has supported me by getting my books like Brody's Ghost or Miki Falls, the graphic novel series. There is, of course, also the Realism Challenge, my book on hyper-realistic illustrations, as well as Mastering Manga and Mastering Manga 2. Really can't thank enough the people who support me by getting these books. But let's go ahead and lay down this pencil. I want to thank you all for watching this video. I hope you found it useful, and I'll be back with another one real soon.